There's probably going to be some bad language in this, so you might not want to let the kids watch.
Hey everyone, The Wine is back with another Loki episode review, and before we get into it, probably should have said it last time, full spoilers for the episode. I'm kind of always going to go full spoilers, and this episode, look, it was a decent one. I think it all hinges on where the series is going to end up. WandaVision, I absolutely loved the start of the series. The mystery aspects, I think I mentioned it in the last video. And the way those mysteries were answered fell a little flat for me. I still like the overall series, but the way it ended definitely affected my enjoyment of the entire series. And I feel like Loki's going to be similar. And in that vein, I'm sorry to say that the hope I left off the last video with, that they wouldn't blue ball us with Mephisto, seems to be happening, because they started this one out pretty much confirming that Loki really is the villain. It wasn't like a bait and switch, and we might still see Mephisto. And they showed a bunch of Loki variants have done this at other times, which I think is an interesting concept. But don't set us up with that stained glass window of a red-faced devil looking like Mephisto. Like, that was... I mean, it's not what made WandaVision bad. I don't think WandaVision was bad overall. But that was a letdown that so many people had these Mephisto, theories for WandaVision, and it didn't happen. And now this time you just fully just come out and give us a straight-up Mephisto reference and pull the rug out from under our feet. So, yeah, that was a little bit of a disappointment. I still think it could be interesting with Loki going up against himself as the villain, but much like with the DB Cooper thing I said last time, like, if you just showed us the DB Cooper thing, I thought it would have been awesome, but because you made it seem like a bigger deal in the trailers, I was disappointed that it was just a fun little scene they did instead of actually something vital to the story. Similar this time. Like, if you just put in the show that Loki was the villain that they're chasing, I might have been really interested with that concept. And I still am. Like, I'm still open to it. But the fact that you set up Mephisto basically with that stained glass window and called him the devil twice, like, you're just letting the air out of the tires. But anyway, we'll get into the episode. Started out pretty interestingly at that Renaissance fair with a nice little interesting kind of murder scene of the main villain, who's still cloaked at this point. And then went straight into the title sequence, and then we get into the TVA, and it turns out Loki is now working for them. It seems they've taken his Infinity Stones away, which you'd think they have to if they were going to be willing to let him go out into the real world. But yeah, you've got Loki working for him now, and the first thing they do is go back there. He's trying to put on a little ruse to stall things out. It was a bit of fun. You got a little scene once they went back with Owen Wilson expanding his relationship with Judge Lady from last time. So it seems like not just seems like, as the episode went on, it's obvious that she's going to be an actual character throughout the series. She wasn't just another stage in this bureaucracy that we saw earlier in that first episode. And her and Owen Wilson have a fun little, friendly relationship. And the interplay between Owen Wilson and Loki is a lot of fun. It's kind of buddy cop. They're buddy detectives, but they kind of did a buddy cop thing with Falcon and Winter Soldier too. But this one's a bit different. In that one, they kind of were pissed off at each other for whatnot, and they'd always had this contentiousness, but they always had somewhat of respect for each other, and they had to work their way through, and they're somewhat equals. This one, Owen Wilson is above Loki in the hierarchy. Loki's below, but Loki thinks he's superior, so it's a fun little interplay between them. And yeah, we explore that. Most of the episode was that, really. You had some interesting stuff. Loki finding out about Ragnarok through reading through files of other variants and whatnot, and seeing the apocalyptic event, which I thought was strange because they showed him looking through the timeline videos of his life last time, and he saw like Thor, Valkyrie, and the Hulk line up on the Rainbow Bridge that was from Ragnarok. So I'm guessing he just didn't watch the end of that clip and just moved on. But yeah, he learned about Ragnarok through this. They had a little bait and switch joke making him look like he was super dev about it. And then when he figured out what he figures out from it, he's just like, oh yeah, move on from it. I think he was a bit cut from it though. But anyway, what he did figure out from it is, and he's pretty smart about this, was that Loki, the other Loki, the bad Loki, is hiding out in apocalyptic events, or an apocalyptic event that we find out later. Because the way the time variance thing works is it's not just doing one thing that upsets the timeline. It's like once you do one thing and it starts a chain reaction and it goes into kind of like a butterfly effect thing, and it's so significant that it completely changes the timeline, that's when the TVA gets notified of it. So if you hang out at an apocalyptic event just before it happens, it doesn't matter what you do because everyone's going to die anyway, so it's not going to make a difference, which is an interesting concept. And then we got a fun little scene where Loki and Morbius went to Pompeii to test the theory, and it was fun seeing Loki camp it up a bit to prove his point, like just saying whatever he wanted to, doing it in a theatrical way, because he knew everything was going to end and it didn't matter what happened, and it turned out he was right. So that's what they started looking into, all these apocalyptic events, and that's it. They were reading files for ages. They got a little tired. They went to have a chat in the restaurant where they'd actually had the chat before. And these are some of the chat before about Loki coming up with the apocalypse theory. These are some of my favorite scenes, watching Morbius and Loki go. It's Mobius, actually. I keep saying Morbius. Morbius is the vampire guy who's actually going to be in Sony versions of Marvel movies soon. So, whoops. But Mobius and Loki having these fun chats. And this one got quite philosophical. It went back to that question of fate that I said I was quite interested in the last one. And how Loki says, so the Time Lords know all the start and end of in the entirety of time, so nothing anyone ever does is free will. And Mobius said it's not quite like that, but didn't go into it. So it'd be interesting to hear why not. But then Loki made the point that, like, we're the only ones with true freedom because we're outside of that. So I hope they keep exploring that question of fate, because as I mentioned last time, it was one of my biggest likes about the philosophy of Berserk, which is my, one of my two favorite manga / animes. And Loki makes a little comment about being a sad little boy. Like, that's what Mobius called him last time, and he brings it up again. And that sparks in Mobius's mind, the Kablooey. And he's like, Kablooey, that kid I saw in the last episode that had the blue teeth and whatnot, Kablooey only existed from 2047 to 2051. And right here I want to call bullshit, because here in Australia, we used to have a lolly called Kablooey when I was a kid. It was a bubble gum, and much like in the show, it made your tongue blue. Well, the kid's teeth were blue in this. Kablooey for us made our tongue blue, probably got a bit on the teeth too, but that's what I thought they were referring to when they first had the Kablooey. I thought it was just fucking good old Kablooey. It was spelt different, so maybe that should have teed me off. I thought they had it in America too, but no, apparently Kablooey's something from the future, only from 2047 to 2051. So then they get to work to narrow down who could it be, like what apocalyptic events had Kablooey in the area in those few years. They figure out it's this place in Alabama. They go there with the team, and we do get an interesting end to the episode. Up until this point, I thought it was, just a pretty middle of the road episode, and it got interesting at the end with the other Loki was using enchantments to possess other people's bodies. So Loki and big security lady were off in their own team because she didn't trust him to go off with Mobius, and she got enchanted by Loki, and this turned into a bit of a Freaky Friday thing, and it was a succession of different actors. Like, she was the only one we've seen, the other ones are just people from the town, but a succession of different actors being inhabited by Loki. And when I said, like, Freaky Friday, a lot of the fun in those types of movies were when the actors had to play each other's mannerisms. And my favourite version of that isn't even a movie, it's an episode of Community, which is my favourite sitcom. Yes, the episode was in season 4, the worst season. Still had, I still thought it was good compared to other sitcoms, but bad compared to Community. But this was the best episode of that season. And look, I'll say none of the actors who were trying to do Loki did it as well as Troy did Abed, or Abed did Troy, or even the Dean did Jeff. But it was still fun to see Loki talk to himself, have a bit of interplay. They were both arrogant, both talking about why they're the better ones. Loki trying to, whether or not he was trying to fool this variant may be for the future, but it seems like Loki seems to at least like Mobius and to at least be going along with the TVA somewhat. But I failed to mention up until this point, the whole time through, he's wanting to get a meeting with the timekeepers. So he definitely wants something to do there. And he says to this Loki that his plan is to overthrow them, which you can totally believe. His whole life has led to him wanting to be king. So you can believe that. And tries to rope this Loki in. This Loki's like, nah, I'm not interested. I've got bigger plans. And then, she, as we find out, she sets off her plan in motion. Like, all those timeline restructuring bombs that the TVA drops whenever they have to clean up a variant thing, she's set a bunch of them to drop in different places. I'm guessing it's different places along the timeline. When they first started dropping, I thought she was just dropping them into the TVA, but maybe that wouldn't have made sense. I don't know how time works in the TVA, so it seems like she's dropped them in different places, and somehow they're messing up the timeline. I thought their whole point was to restore the timeline to its normal, its prime position. But I suppose we'll go into that next episode of where she's dropping those. And yeah, they started flying off everywhere. So the tension really started ramping up towards the end of the episode. And yes, as I kind of just spoiled then with the Loki character comes out after inhabiting a bunch of other characters, and she finally shows herself to Loki. She takes her hood off. She's a woman, and it doubles down on the fact that we probably aren't getting Mephisto because she was wearing like a headband with horns on it. And I know Loki used to wear his helmet with horns, so that could have been in Loki in the stained glass window, but neither of them have red skin, and they really made that look like Mephisto. So yeah, I'm a little annoyed that that's not going to be part of the story going forward. Also, we seem to be continuing this trend of replacing all these established heroes with, different versions of the heroes, which I know you see in comics and whatnot somewhat, but like, it seems like Thor is going to be Lady Thor. Loki is going to be Lady Loki. Captain America is not Captain America. Captain America is Sam, which made sense because they worked together before. But the new Iron Man is going to be Ironheart, which is a little girl. And I understand they want to bring in a bunch of strong female characters. I'm fine with that, but you don't have to shit on all the men and throw them away. Like, you don't need to put men down to build women up. So we don't know if Loki's getting fully replaced here. But, man, if they end up trying to replace Tom Hiddleston with this version of Loki, I will be pretty disappointed. Because Tom Hiddleston is so charismatic. He does such a good job playing Loki. He is Loki. And he's been part of the funnest stuff of this series so far. So, yeah, we're just going to have to see where that goes. But hopefully they're not just saying, let's get rid of all these white dudes and replace them with other people. Because, like, there's other avenues you can have, you know, different identities of superheroes. You don't just have to kill all the white guys. But anyway, I digressed a little bit there. Now, the episode ended on an interesting cliffhanger with Lady Loki going through a time portal thingy. Who knows where she went. Loki standing there looking at it a bit. The other guys from the TVA run up because they hadn't been around the confrontation between Lady Loki and Loki yet. And Loki's like looking back to them and thinking, what do I do? And he goes through the portal. So next episode, we'll probably see a bit of Lady Loki and Loki debating their philosophies and whatnot, which could be interesting. Maybe teaming up. Maybe if they do team up for a while, but they both plot to fuck each other over, which could be interesting too. But also the TVA seems like they're going to think maybe Loki had this stuff all planned. Because, like I said, they didn't see the other Loki escape through the thing. They just saw Loki standing there and then he escaped too. So they might think, oh, he double-crossed us to escape, which could also lead to some interesting tension. So we're going to have to see what happens next episode. I'll have a quick look through my notes to see if I missed anything. Yeah, no, I think I mentioned anything I wanted to. So, yeah. I'm enjoying the series so far, but it's very dependent on where they take it. So, balls in your court, Marvel. I look forward to next week, and let's see what happens. Thanks. Have a good one.